Hey guys, it's Zeon, the realest motherfucker in the Dragon Ball community, and I am back with another Dragon Ball Super review. The synopsis for this episode goes as such. Goku has now arrived on Beerus' planet tree thing, him and Vegeta do some housework, then some training, then we see Sorbet, Tagoma, and Sashimi talking about the uprising like we heard in Resurrection F, and then Sheppa and Vado show up. End episode. Now there are a lot of things that are worth noting in this episode, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump straight into that. First off, while Whis is on his way back to the planet with Goku, Vegeta is able to sense his ki. And the Oracle Fish says, oh, so you're finally able to sense God Ki now. Which is a really interesting line for two reasons. One, somehow Vegeta is able to sense God Ki, and possibly is already a god without going through the ritual, so his training with Whis must have done that. Secondly, this confirms that Whis does have the Ki of a god, that Whis is a god of some kind. There's been a lot of debate going back and forth about this, whether or not Whis was a god or Whis wasn't a god. Well, there you go, there's your confirmation. He has God Ki, so he is a god of some kind. Another thing worth noting is that whenever Goku gets there, he says that he can barely recognize Vegeta's ki, and that Vegeta might actually be stronger than him now. Which is pretty damn impressive because this is a Goku post-God Ki absorption, so to think that Vegeta's base form is now like on that tier really says a lot about how much Vegeta's just been busting his ass over the last 6 months. Another thing I found really interesting was Vegeta's respect for Whis. Vegeta has completely taken on this master-student relationship, and he is treating it in a very professional and respectful manner. He's doing house chores, he's listening to everything Whis tells him to do, without question. And once again, this goes to that whole growth of Vegeta. Vegeta realizes that he can't do things on his own, that he's not the best out there, and that he needs others' help to achieve these great levels of power, and he's learned to have respect for those that are above him, and is willing to lower himself entirely to that student level. Now, as for the actual training, we don't get to see a whole lot of that. All we're really going to see is them carrying these big weights, and then Whis teleports him in front of Beerus, who in his sleep fires out a massive blast and hits him head on, and apparently this has just been part of Vegeta's regular training, carrying this heavy fucking weight and getting shot in the goddamn face. Now, something worth noting is a line that Whis says. When Vegeta goes to lift his weights, he can't budge them at first. And Whis states, oh, well, yeah, I made your weights twice as heavy as they were before. And there's a lot of people that seem to be taking this out of context that Vegeta was carrying weights twice as heavy as what Goku was carrying. That's not what's stated. Only that Whis is double the weight of Vegeta's weights. Not necessarily that his are double the weight of Goku's. Goku's already absorbed God Ki, he's already been a Super Saiyan God. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he would start Goku on a lower tier, especially if they're already so close in power. So we can't really confirm which one of these two are the strongest. At least not from that line of dialogue. After training, Whis is having a conversation with the Oracle Fish, and we get another interesting piece of information. That Goku and Vegeta are intentionally keeping themselves in their base form. They're trying to raise the power of their base forms, and any other Super Saiyan transformations would just become that much more powerful. Which is a good piece of information to know, because there's been this huge misconception that Goku absorbed the God Ki, and now his base form is what his God form was. And if that were the case, Goku going SS1 on top of having his full god power at his base form disposal should have just torn straight through Beerus like a chump. So it is nice to know we finally have some confirmation that Goku's base form isn't that ridiculously OP now, and that their Super Saiyan transformations do still count for something, which kind of falls in line with my theory that Goku's SS1 form is somewhere around the tier of his previous god form, and not his base form is. Now, everything I've said so far I've been pretty positive on, and I really did like all of these elements. But as per usual, there are some things I had some issues with. Let me just get the old punching bag out of the way first and bring up the animation. This episode had a really nice simplistic style to it. I really did enjoy the aesthetic. I thought the animation was fairly fluid. My only issue is there's a few scenes throughout. It's always conversational scenes, ones with multiple characters in frame, and the art direction just looks sloppy as fuck. Like this scene, and this scene, and this scene, they just look bad. Which is even worse because they're juxtaposed with close-up shots that look fantastic. Every time there's a close-up shot of somebody talking, it looks fantastic. But then they pull out for the wide shot, and it looks like crap again. And this is kind of consistent throughout the entire episode. But honestly, there's only a handful of scenes that are like that, and it's not enough to damper the overall enjoyment level of the episode, at least for me. And honestly, I seriously doubt most of the people watching are even gonna fucking notice. Now, that's taken care of, let's move on to some of my more major gripes. First off, Vegeta can now sense God Ki, but we have no clue how. They never talk about it, they never say what part of his training allowed him to tap into this ability. We don't know if he himself has God Ki. They really kept the whole thing very vague and ambiguous. We don't know if he ever achieved the red-haired form, or if Whis' power somehow instilled God Ki into him, and then later on he's going to bring out the blue-haired form by tapping into that power through his SS1 form. They keep it very, very ambiguous. And by ambiguous, I mean they just don't tell us jack shit. Now, this doesn't mean they're not going to tell us at all. Hopefully in a future episode, they'll go back and they'll explain it, tell us how he's able to sense God Ki now, tell us if he has God Ki right now, and explain how he was able to achieve this. But this is a really, really important thing to just leave out. Then again, this is the same series that is still neglected to tell us why the Pilaf gang are fucking kids, or what the fuck happened to Kaio's planet, so I'm not exactly holding my breath on this, but I will give it the benefit of the doubt. Another minor gripe I have is, Goku got tired by pulling weeds? When Goku was a kid, his training with the Muten Roshi consisted of him plowing fields with his bare fucking hands at age 12. But now Goku is going around just cutting weeds, and after going through a field of that, he's completely exhausted and falls over tired. What? Am I supposed to believe this motherfucker made the universe shake? And my final complaint has to deal with everything in the last few minutes of the episode. First is Goku and Vegeta training with Whis, actually sparring with him. This scene is clearly recreating the scene from Resurrection F, but it's just not done as well. The sparring match is a lot shorter, they throw a few punches and then Whis goes, "Stop, you're too slow." So it wasn't that visually engaging, and the speech that Whis gives them about thinking too much and just relying on their own natural reflexes, that conversation goes by a lot faster in the TV version. And it's really weird to say the TV version of something isn't as well paced as the movie version. The series is episodic. You can just take as much time as you want because you have God knows how many episodes to tell the rest of the story. So them rushing through this was rather bothersome. I much would have preferred that this would have shown us more training and then save that entire conversation for the next episode and give it the breathing room that I thought it really needed. Another scene that's really rushed is the scene with Sorbet. It's the exact same scene that we see in Resurrection F, where they're told that the planet had an uprising and they have to withdraw their Frieza forces from it. And once again, it's just like a really rushed scene. It's a very short scene. I feel this was a really poor decision considering these are going to be our main antagonists for this arc. These are the guys that are going to resurrect Frieza. And I really thought they deserved more screen time for their first time being shown. I mean, yes, you can argue that, well, we've already seen Resurrection F. Well, fuck Resurrection F. This is Dragon Ball Super. Not everyone will have seen Resurrection F. This series needs to treat itself like it's its own self-contained thing. It can't keep just expecting us to have seen Resurrection F and have the better interpretations of those scenes make up for the show's shortcomings. They did this in the last arc, and now I'm starting to see them do it in this arc, and it's worrisome. And then there's finally the reveal of Champa and Vados. These characters have been fucking teased to us for months now. Before the show even came out, they've been teasing them, and finally they have been shown in the goddamn series, 18 episodes in. And I really felt that they needed a better introduction than what they got. All we get is them flying past Frieza's ship, they show up at a random planet, no explanation, blow it up, and then leave. Their introduction gave us no information on who they are, what they're doing, what they're looking for. You don't get any kind of ominous dialogue from the Kaioshins. I mean, clearly this is meant to be some kind of foreshadowing for bigger events in the next arc, but if that's the case, then they should have left it a bit more ambiguous. Give us little hints here and there throughout the arc that there are these other characters out there, and build up to them a bit more before giving us this big reveal. You can make the argument that, well, they've been advertising them for months, like you were just bitching about, so they finally showed them. There was your build-up. Yeah, that's build-up in advertising. That's not build-up in the series. You have to think about this. Not everyone's seen the advertisements. When people see this series dubbed on TV, it's going to be their first introduction to this story, to these characters. And I feel one of the things that Dragon Ball Super is really failing on is presentation. But in all honesty, in the grand scheme of this episode, as a whole, the last 3 minutes is really just kind of minor, nitpicky bullshit. And yes, I would have preferred to go more to Vegeta's training, and explaining what that was. But what is here, at least prior to that last 3 minutes, was fantastic. I enjoyed every bit of it. The interaction between Goku and Vegeta, all the dialogue between Whis and the Oracle Fish, and Whis and Goku and Vegeta, just how everyone was interacting. The comedic bits were fantastic, so I really do have a bit of a mixed opinion. What we do have, for the most part, is really good stuff. I just kind of wish I had gotten slightly different stuff. It's kind of like getting a really nice Christmas gift, but it's not quite what you were wanting or expecting, but it's still a pretty damn good gift in its own damn right. So you're kind of grateful that you got it, but you're still a little disappointed you didn't get the thing you were actually hoping for. So yeah, that's episode 18. It was a slightly disappointing but still pretty good Christmas gift in November. And that wraps up my review of this episode. Zeon, out.